Awesome. So I never remember, do we call committee meetings to order?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to call this evening's Board Policy Review Committee Special Session Meeting to order for November 19, 2025. May I get a roll call, please?
Roll call. Parker.
Here.
Brenneman.
Here.
Mulvaney Henry.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Thank you. Gentlemen, can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda that you haven't seen?
Tonight's agenda that I've never seen. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Parker.
Aye.
Brenneman.
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. So that takes us to our first substantive piece of the agenda tonight, which is the customer service policy review. And Gabi, I did talk to Abby a little bit ago and told her this was not going to be like Joker's Wild or anything like that. We really have like two specific issues that came up over the last several months, or maybe even the last month, we don't know.
Okay.
That we wanted to sort of drill in on. And one of them is revert to landlord and sort of the policy around that. And then the other is outstanding debt or uncollected debt from years past and sort of maybe the policy around that as well.
Okay.
Given some real-time examples that we've seen recently. So those are the only two things that we're not opening the thing up again, I promise. We're not doing that.
I saw customer service.
Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, not
Okay.
doing that, not doing that at all.
I wouldn't be here.
It sounds like I'm out. And I do appreciate our retiring board member / policy review committee member, Tom, for attending tonight. I know you have very little desire to at this point, this late in the year and this late in your term. So thank you, Mr. President, for coming tonight. Okay, so on the first one, we could take either one first. And do you guys have a preference on those two issues? Which one we take first?
Probably the revert to landlord will probably be simpler. So start with that, short and sweet.
Okay,
Maybe.
maybe.
Optimistic.
Yeah, and
Well, the other one was a lot of conversation. So yeah.
oh, look at that. Rob's got it all pulled up on the screen and there are copies of it in the folders if you guys need a hard copy. Angie, do you have a hard copy as well?
I do.
Okay. So 5.02, is that where we're at, Rob?
Yeah.
Is that where we're talking about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the scenario that was brought to me, and I actually don't think it's covered in here. And it may be more of an SOP at this point, so how we apply the policy versus something else. But we have a customer who is a landlord. And so what he has shared with me, and he has a parallel issue on the UG side, just to be clear. But, and I've spoken with Jeff Miles over there and we're kind of trying to handle it sort of in unison, but I thought it was a good chance to at least get to this piece of it now. So, I think sort of the revert to landlord piece is maybe not as big of an issue, but I suppose that depends on how long there is between if he loses a renter and he gets a new renter, right? Because we all understand if the utilities are going to stay on, someone's got to pay the utilities and he owns the property and he's the landlord. I think we all agree that that's perfectly fair and reasonable, right? So the concept of it reverting to the landlord after you've got the departure of this tenant makes sense to me. But so what he's told me is that he's getting, and again, I'm going off what the customer said, so I don't know, but it was enough for me to say, how are we actually applying this, right? So if he loses a renter and, the utilities have reverted to him, when the new tenant comes, we are charging him like he's a new customer again for that scenario. Is that accurate?
So I'm just gonna guess he's talking about the service fee. If they have the revert to landlord on there, the service fee is $5, not the 75.
Okay, so it's a $5 fee,
Correct.
not the 75 that we would,
Normally bill.
okey dokey. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
That would be, okay.
And that's for the landlord.
That's for not the tenant, correct? That is for the land.
The tenant would have a whole different deal as though they were a brand new customer anyway,
Right,
right?
And is
Okay,
that set out somewhere?
Yes, so if the landlord, if the owner contacts us and tell us they want the revert to landlord, $5 versus 75, and then we send them the information they have to fill out, it's in the cover letter. I don't know.
I don't think we do.
No,
No, we don't.
And
We could add.
so is that something maybe we should add? Because we obviously have a ton of folks who lease property,
Yeah.
right, to residential customers here in case you.
I think it ought to be in there, included.
Yeah, I think we could,
Seems
I
like
think we could do a revert to owner.
Included in the fee?
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, revert to owner service fee, $5. Yeah, we could do that.
Okay. And then, so, and this may be related to the UG portion of it, so I will not hold you guys to this if you don't know. But we talked about this a little bit, and that is, so if he's got again, renter leaves, new renter comes in, do we like reestimate what the usage is going to be for this particular property at that point in time and
Oh, for like, where we do the sewer.
estimated usage?
yes, so with the new tenant, yes, that's it, we do change the WPA, the wastewater, that's what they call it. Yes, the wastewater is readjusted and it'll start out at 5. But I know the UG, if I had a copy of the bill, it's on the back of the bill. They did change it where if they call in, that they do have to contact the UG, then it can be adjusted. They'll notify our billing supervisor and she'll make the adjustment.
Okay, that seems extremely inefficient, and I know we don't have any control over that. But so just so I ensure we understand this. So the way they would calculate the wastewater for the new renter would be based on what?
So if I recall correctly, they'll start them out because they used to always just bill them 5 CCFs and they did not give them an adjustment until the average period came in April. So now they start out with the 5. Go ahead. Oh, did you bring up the bill? Go to the UG page. I believe it's on their definitions.
And our average customer CCFs is 7, right?
Yes. Yes, for the water usage.
Wastewater at the top.
So it doesn't say it on there, but I know they will make changes to it. Now, in the past, they didn't, they automatically got the 5. And if I recall correctly, they have to be there for 3 months and then based off their average for the 3 months, they can lower it. If it's greater than 5, they leave it at 5, but if it's lower, then they'll lower it.
But the customer has to call in.
They have to
It's not an automatic thing, despite the fact that we know
Yes.
we have the information available to us to tell them it's less than 5.
Yes, it has to be initiated and any changes for wastewater have to come from the UG since we're the billing agent.
I understand.
That's different for commercial and industrial renters, right?
Right,
Bill,
their commercial industrial, it's based off their actual usage, so it'll vary monthly.
So why can't they do that for residential? And I know, again, I'm not holding you to this. These are questions I need to ask
So
them.
I think I have the answer to that one.
Go on.
Because they do it in the months that you don't water your yard or fill your pool.
Like November.
So because if
I
like,
hear you, but also it doesn't, like, again, when we have no, I know that they are not cost of service utilities, okay? So I know there are no rate studies that are performed for those fees. Am I accurate in that?
there are not rate studies as you know a rate study.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are rate studies.
Yeah, so there aren't rates.
There's not like.
Not cost of service studies done. And I'm not asking for but I just,
And I don't know how in depth they get, you know, when it's to this level here.
Mhm.
But I think that it was so that someone in the summer that's watering their yard every day doesn't have to pay wastewater on that part of their bill. So they calculate, when they calculate that average, they do it not in the summer months. So if you're filling a pool or watering your yard, that doesn't go into your average because your summertime use would be higher.
But like if you use more, it's like, I don't have a pool, you know?
Right,
So
but you don't, that water doesn't go into the wastewater system.
I hear you-ish.
It's the
Mhm.
same with their adjustments for wastewater. So for example, if a customer has a broken pipe, because it is during the winter and they have a leak, they still have to initiate a call to the unified government to request an adjustment. And I know, that's why I believe it's 3 months. Same thing for them. They have to have 3 months of normal water usage before the UG will go back and issue an adjustment. So they used to not do it that way, and that did create a hardship for the customers because, like, for example, we had a customer the other day whose wastewater is over $200 a month, and he just got the leak fixed this month, so he'd have to wait an additional 2 months before they would even consider an adjustment on his account.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, so for our purposes for this, for the revert to landlord, it's $5. And I know I just went whole tangent, but
And we can.
I know that I'm going to have more discussions with Jeff and the folks over there about this. So
And we'll add the $5 to the fee schedule, so it's listed out there specifically.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that was painless. Thank you.
I was hoping that one would be.
You're up.
Okay. Oh, I just mentioned this to Rose when we were having the committee meeting and you and I talked
Right,
about it a little bit,
yeah,
which I think we talked this to death last time, but it was when someone has old debt and they return as a customer. And the only thing that this is probably just a question for Angie, that after kind of getting that all resolved with the landlord, was they had suggested that there is a certain point in time where there's perhaps a statute of limitations on collections.
So
And are we holding people to that debt who are returning as customers, who, if they weren't returning as customers, there'd be zero ability to collect the debt? And I
So, yes.
can't remember how far we got into that.
So the statute of limitations, there is a statute of limitations for active collections. There is a point, I think it's 7 years. Is it 7 years? Thank you. I don't remember that you can no longer pursue active collection, filing the lawsuit. However, the passive collection, as in allowing someone to come in, or not signing them up
Yeah,
until they are even, is okay.
okay.
Because we're carrying a bad debt, we don't send them to collection, make phone calls, do anything to solicit them paying it. So we're not collecting on them, but if they come back, that debt is still valid. And we make them pay it before we allow them to reset.
Okay. That's helpful.
And we did, last year, to your point, we did talk extensively about, do we put parameters on it? Do we not?
We did actually put a parameter on it. We have 6 months from the date of re-signature.
That's right.
Right.
To collect on that bad debt. And if we don't.
To discover it.
To discover it,
Discover it,
yes,
that's
to
right.
discover it. That way, if somebody signs up and we haven't found it, if they've been a customer 6 months, we cannot attach it. But if we find it either prior to service or within that 6 months, we can. That is
We
correct.
also did a 6-month arrangement report, but now we're before we did it.
Right, that's right. We do the
And they
arrangement.
got to pay at least once.
Right.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
and that all seemed, well, so how would that work? Because we talk about primary account holders and secondary account holders when we talk about this language, right? When I reviewed this.
Mhm.
And so if it's a landlord tenant, how does that work?
Well, the tenant's responsible for the debt. If the tenant racks up debt at a place that they're renting, and then they turn around in 5 years and go buy a house, and that debt stays with that person, it's their debt.
Right, so it doesn't follow the location, it'll follow the account.
Yes.
But when you say like primary and secondary, like I'll just give an example, say me and Abby are roommates and we move, we don't pay we have a write-off. I come back to start service, even if I'm listed as secondary, they would have me pay the debt before I could start service, whichever one is going to call to initiate service.
So if you're secondary,
You have the same
primary, you're responsible for the
Equally
bill.
responsible.
Yeah, equally responsible.
Well, so, but that same, and because I'm looking at how we define those, and I'm sure we had a really good reason to define it. Right.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking in terms of how does that translate to because in the case that, Brett is talking about,
Mhm.
it was literally, well, I guess was it a landlord who called on behalf of a tenant or was it a tenant?
I think both reached out.
Yeah,
Okay,
I spoke with the landlord, but
okay,
both had reached out. The caveat to that is, I think they were saying that the debt was racked up by somebody that had been living in the house with them, not necessarily the account holder at the
Right.
time.
If I think she had her name, the bill was in her name, but she was not at the property. Somebody else was
Right.
sitting there.
okay.
which I realize is an added challenge to that
Yes.
and harder to nail down exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So do we think that we have this adequately covered? Because we do have the backstop on that I did see.
It's a backstop
We
being
have
that
to-
6 months. of
We have to
recovery.
discover it within
Yeah.
180 days of them initiating service.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I probably was when we discussed this last time too. So it's helped to refresh and get clarifications. I'm a little torn on it because on the one hand, I don't want to punish people just because they're returning as a customer, whereas if they were not returning as a customer,
Mhm.
I don't think we see a sense of that.
Right?
On the other hand, we charge for the service we provide and every dollar that we don't get paid by the people who you were responsible for it gets
Yeah.
paid by everybody else. And so I don't know that there is a perfect sweet spot on that. I just, the statute of limitations thing was something that hadn't registered with me and we may have discussed that last time in our hours of meeting on, or days of meeting on it.
Months.
Do we-
Maintained IT system, I mean, it doesn't cost us hardly any call, it's just, I believe, where those accounts are looked up by Gabby's team. So it's not exactly like it's free for us to continue running these collection operations.
Sure.
I don't know how much we actually collect per year from bad debt.
I would love to know that.
Okay.
Okay.
You can look-
The other thing, I don't know that there would be any way to actually get this number, but I'm just trying to think of the incentives involved. If folks have a debt that they can't afford to pay off, they are either not going to have utilities within KCK one way or another,
Mhm.
whether that's not residing here or finding someone else to have the account under, potentially. Some presumably do come back and make a 6 month arrangement and pay it off. Is it possible that the disincentive is so large that we are not recouping any dollars that we could partially recoup? But I guess that depends on how many actually come back and pay it off, because if that's a big portion, then we're probably coming out as well as we can financially there.
How
So,
long do we keep?
oh, they get turned over at the same time.
At the state, okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's one thing is sometimes it's surprising that we still have it on our record and have it been collected by the state because we turn it over and the state would garnish, say, taxes or something like that. And so if it's old, 8, 10 years, have they not been paying state taxes? I don't know.
Well, that's the other thing. I know that there's I don't want to say pecking order, but there's a hierarchy. So it just depends where we fall on the list because there's other companies that
Oh,
we.
that's true. There, depending on what other debts they have, we
Whether it's-
may not be the first one.
And if someone, left KCK and moved across state line for 10 years and came back, they
For
would
sure,
not.
right. Yeah, good
Which-
point.
We can also, if they have a casino winning in Kansas, we can get their casino.
Yeah, so I guess all that to say, I don't know that what's the perfect, because
Agreed.
I can argue both sides of it, no
Yes.
matter where that line is drawn. So I don't know that I'm pushing a particular.
Well, and when we talked about this, we talked about, and I know we talked about this at the time too, is there a dollar figure,
Yeah,
right? That should be, that we should include.
well, I guess, and then maybe that gets to the incentives, because there is, I have to imagine, a dollar figure where someone just goes, well, that's never gonna happen,
Right.
right? I will therefore, I gotta find someone else's name to put this in, or I'm not going to reside in Kansas City, Kansas.
Right.
But without, I guess, more data to go on, I don't know what.
So if it's $500, that's an extra $83 a month. Like if they're doing a
For the
6
6
month.
month, yeah.
uh-huh. And again, I mean, I know that, affordability of $83 a month means different things to different people.
Yeah.
They could also do flex pay. And so then they would have 25% or whatever they're paying.
And it would be limited to this.
Right, then they could have a little bit longer than 6 months if they needed that.
Is it possible, and I know we talked about the limitations of perhaps some old systems and a lot of different conversations last time we were going through this, to pull any sort of numbers on what are the sizes of debts that people return and pay off?
So what I wrote down to see if we can find is debt collected because the customer started service, like they had a write-off, and that's how we collected that debt. If we collect any debt, if it's just a write-off, they haven't initiated service, and then the average write-off amount, that be,
Yeah,
okay.
What's the volume of people? I mean, that would, is it do we see it all the time? Or do we see it once a month? Do we see it once a year? I mean, what?
So we do, when an account finals, we do send out, we try to send out we do send out friendly reminder letters, but we also email them now. And that has helped because if a customer goes online, it does ask them to put in a forwarding address, but if they put in the service address, the system doesn't recognize it's the same address. So potentially we'd be sending the bill to the address they're not at anymore. So we have gotten more response for customers paying with us emailing the letter to them. But I can check on the numbers on that because I don't know what the average is of write-offs a month or a year, but I could do it for monthly and year.
and maybe, I mean, we don't have to have every single data point within that, but what's the largest one we've ever had a residential customer return and pay off?
Okay.
Because if that's
Yeah.
$400, then I think we can safely conclude anyone beyond that is just deciding it's not worth
Right.
it. And then if there were a dollar amount that maybe moves that incentive for them, where it's like, well, okay, if it was $500, I could have made that work, but mine was 2,000, so I just had to figure something else out.
Right.
Is there a time frame as well? I mean, that's.
Yeah, I guess that's.
I mean, if I move from one place to another and it's $500, but that was 18 months ago
Mhm.
versus 10 years ago, time value of money, if that was 10 years ago, the utility's probably written that off but if that was 18 months ago, that's probably still pretty active on our.
I think that's fair as well. And that was when the conversation with that
Yeah.
particular landlord, it was like, okay, at some point, we've probably written this off on our books.
Sure.
And are we still holding this person to that? And
Yeah.
look, again, I understand the pros and cons both ways, but I thought that was a valid part of that
Yeah.
discussion.
I know when we talked to other utilities, they looked at dollar amounts and time. So that both of those were limitation and factors they put into their criteria.
How difficult is it to look at some of those
We could do it again.
comparisons? Yeah. And I apologize if we're just having to rehash things that we talked about a year
Well,
ago.
maybe we pull a larger sample. We only collected data from a handful last time, so we could look and see if we could get a broader scope and see what they do.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
That would be great.
And then, the balancing is that is we don't file limited action suits against someone who's left. And so, because they do it's my understanding, they come back and a lot of times and we get the money without having to take more aggressive steps. So, do you want to balance that out with, filing more or limited action suits for unpaid accounts? Because I don't think it's 7 years, it's 3 or 5 for the unpaid.
5 would make sense under contract law.
Written, you're right.
So I could be wrong.
So,
Let's look at the data
Okay.
and
And we can.
confident we'll have policy committee meetings in 2026.
Gonna miss out, Tom. You could still join on Zoom though.
City,
All along.
you can be policy committee emeritus if you would like. Okay, so those were the two issues from the customer service policy perspective we wanted to review.
Okay.
And sounds like we're gonna update, I've got some more work to do with the UG on sort of the wastewater situation. And again, I will share the communication that was shared with me. I'll share that with you because this was the same customer
Okay.
that had the issue. And I want to make sure that I follow up with him to ensure that he understands at least our component of it.
Mhm.
So, okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
And we'll get this data and then we can circle back and maybe that helps us with what we want to do going forward.
Okay,
All right,
Awesome.
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anything to add?
January.
I don't think it'll be December.
January.
January, Tom.
We could put a rush on it if you want to meet mid-December.
Weren't we doing that last year? Weren't we doing that last year?
Yes.
I did look up it's 5 years for written contract and 3 years for active. So it'd be 3 years.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you, Rob.
Thanks.
Okay, so next topic on the agenda, topic 4, it's board policies is what it's called. So,
You need us for that.
no, thank you ladies so much for staying and I appreciate that.
Like,
Really appreciate the help.
When did you want this brought back? This part, at $5 in the fee schedule?
we could have.
Oh, that one as soon as possible,
Yeah.
right? Just so we can, I mean, that one's a no-brainer right
Yeah.
now.
On the
December meeting.
The first December meeting, we could. do
Sure.
that.
All right, once you get it, if you'll send it to me, then I'll do a reso for it. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, ladies. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Chairperson, you say board policies, like this one.
This is more generic.
Oh,
So, I mean, that's gonna be a part of it, but it's more generic. Okay? So, there are a number of, policies out there that have been adopted via resolution, over the years, that are actual policies that apply to the board itself. And, there's been a lot of discussion recently. And we worked very hard last year, I think you guys remember, on sort of the procedural part of it, right? And we modernized the procedure to some extent, which was great. We probably need to get to one part of that, but we can get to that as sort of the greater thing. So I think my thought process is we need to sort of consolidate, and some of what governs the board today is included in the extremely old charter, right, ordinance, which is fine. But I think that there's some things there we need to probably bring forward into, because, if you are, and as we're having now, I mean, when I look at January and realize that, will be in my 7th year on the board and I'm the longest tenured board member at that point. That's, so I'm just thinking in the future for other board members that are onboarding, because we certainly have a couple coming here in January, is having all of this stuff in one place, right?
Mhm.
And maybe modernizing some of this, including, I know that there's some work being done on a couple of the policies that we all agree to adhere to, and things like that. But I passed out, thank you, Angie, for pulling this. There is a resolution that is coming before, I'm not sure if it's made it through a standing committee. I know I've seen it on an agenda. And I think they're calling this the kindness resolution or something like that over at the UG. And when you look at it, it's sort of talking about, decorum and some things like that, that govern that particular governing body. And, something that, I think that we all take very seriously is, governing our own behavior. and ensuring that, we are meeting the expectations, of the electorate, but more importantly, we are fiduciaries of public monies, as our UG commissioners as well. But I think that, maybe incorporating some of that coupled with, some of, so we're not going to, a new board member doesn't have to go to 7 documents to see what it is. We put this all in, one document of things that govern board, things we have to adhere to, things that govern board behavior, and modernizing it some, not obviously violating the charter in any way, because that would not be permitted, nor looking to amend the charter in any way, because God knows nobody wants to do that anywhere in KCK under any circumstance, apparently. But, so that's something I just wanted to sort of get the committee's thoughts on and see if that's something you guys think is, a worthwhile effort or would be helpful to new board members, or I don't know.
Maybe we ought to have a mentorship.
I mean, I know we've, sort of half joked about that in the past, but maybe we should. And, and maybe, formalize, that program with existing board members and, assign them, because again, we've got 2 new board members coming on, in January. I think I hope that they would appreciate that. In some way.
I know I would have appreciated it when I first came on.
Yeah.
So
I think turning this into the, one true resource that's the first place you look, you're not missing anything else.
I mean, there are things that, we all know, the elections are governed how they're how they're governed, but after the elections, like what happens, right? It's like, okay, we have a travel policy. We've got this policy, we've got that policy. And ensure that ethics policy, obviously, all those things, but make sure that, if that we have these in one place for folks. And if we, based on, circumstances, over the last however many years or whatever, that we've learned new things, perhaps we incorporate those into some new set of policies. And obviously I don't know what next year is going to look like, with respect to any of our committees or anything. I mean, I obviously have a burning desire to continue with this particular committee, because I am, this is Rob and I have done a lot of work together. And I think something like this would be, a little bit of an undertaking, but it's something, and we'll take that up with new officers or president or whatever, but something I would be willing to continue to do and to try to get in place, as quickly as we could next year based on what we got. But I just sort of wondered what your thoughts were on that.
I'm all in favor of it.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. Well, then, so is this something, Angie, we would need to take to the full board to undertake an effort to create sort of a one-stop resource for all things related to board of directors of this utility?
Insofar as it's contained in a policy, I think this committee has the ability to work on it for as long as they'd like and then take it to the board,
Okay.
without further approvals.
I mean, functionally, are we talking like practically amending things into this policy?
Well, I mean, potentially, because what I see it as is maybe like adding on to
Yeah.
that and not necessarily, so that's the procedural part. Like, so we have a little book, right?
Right.
And that's the procedural portion and we tab it and it's like, oh, okay, well, here's the ethics portion and, oh, okay, here's the travel portion and, okay, here's rules of decorum, things like that, might come out of, but, sort of incorporating some of what I think where they're steering over at the UG. And I mean, the way I look at it is, I would like this board to be a model of, civic engagement, and civic, civil discourse, all those things, as fiduciaries of public policy.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. So I think I am. Really, a lot of it is clerical, right? It's taking this, it's taking the travel policy, anything else that exists that is board policy, quite literally packaging them together But then also maybe evaluating, okay, what's missing from that? That would be right. Like if there is something like this, right, where, hey, the UG has a thing that would otherwise belong here that we haven't adopted, or maybe it's not looking at the UG. Maybe it's just, we think there's a blind spot here, or the charter references.
Things out of the charter,
Okay.
like that are required of
Yeah.
us charter, right? And sort of integrating those into
Yeah.
a portion of this. I mean, Angie, do you see any issue with that? I mean, again, I'm not looking at change the charter in any way. I
No,
understand that there are obligations that exist in the charter. But again, so we're not looking at 4 different documents every time we're trying to figure out, how we're governing ourselves.
right. There's no issue in restating what's in the charter in a section of the BPU policies. We'll just have to be mindful that if
Understood.
changes, then the policy has to be updated.
Yep. Yep. And so again, like in terms of just, I think the hope is to make this easier
Yeah.
for, a new board member.
Shoot, I'm going in my 3rd year. I think that'll make things easier for me.
Well, I mean, going in my 7th and I think the same
Yeah.
thing. So I don't know. I don't know why I was sitting around thinking about that, but just sort of sitting around.
As one does.
As one does, I guess. Well, as one does, I guess. So, all right, so we're okay with, as it sits now, we'll see what the policy committee looks like, I guess, January moving forward. But that would be my suggestion.
I like it.
Great. Okay, well, I don't want to say this is the quickest meeting on record, but it's not the longest meeting on record, so I just try to get right to the point. Gentlemen, the next item on the agenda is the adjournment. So
I
there
move,
is nothing else.
unless Tom would like to for his final, likely final policy committee.
To make the motion to adjourn? Okay. I make the motion to adjourn the special policy session of November the 19th, 2025.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Parker,
Aye.
Brenneman,
Aye.
Benny Henry.
Aye.
That motion carries. The review committee is adjourned.
Thank you.